Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Butts Talk. It's December 8th. I'm Nick Butts. Let's get started. So, last week was championship weekend featuring 4 Power 5 conference championships and a de facto Big 12 championship game. So let's dive in. We'll start in the Pac-12 since that was the first Power 5 one. Number 4, Washington. Number 8, Colorado. Well, that game was in Santa Clara, California, and the Huskies blew out the Buffaloes 41-10. It wasn't even close. I think Washington really made a strong playoff case in this game. And I think that's what eventually, really, this game is what it's what made the playoff committee decide to put them in. The SEC championship game, Alabama and Florida. Do we even need to talk about that one? All Alabama. Oh my gosh, what was it? 52-16. Man, oh man. In the Big 12, it was bedlam for the championship game. I'll say the championship game, even though it wasn't. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. Oklahoma won pretty big in that one to win the Big 12. In the ACC championship game, it was Clemson and Virginia Tech. Clemson came out on top. They were up 35-14 on the Hokies at one point, but couldn't put them away. But they escaped with a 42-35 victory. And in the Big Ten, I don't think anyone really saw this one coming after Wisconsin led Penn State 28-7 at one point. Penn State stormed back and won the game 38-31, making a strong playoff case for themselves. But did they get in? No. Yes. The day following all those conference championships, the playoff committee released their top 4, their playoff bracket. And here it is. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Clemson. Number 3, Ohio State. And number 4, Washington. So that means Alabama and Washington will face each other in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia, 3 p.m., December 31st on ESPN. And after that one, at 7 p.m. on ESPN in Glendale, Arizona, it's the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl between Clemson and Ohio State. Now, the Fiesta Bowl is shaping up to maybe be the game of the year, other than the game, Ohio State and Michigan. I think this is by far the best matchup of the bowl season. The 2-3 game is usually pretty intriguing. I'd love to see some offense in this game, and I think that we will see some offense in this game. I can imagine Clemson will but they will get it rolling on offense in this one. And I think Ohio State will be able to get their offense going in this one as well. I can see this being a high-scoring game, 30s, 40s maybe. I think, though, that Clemson, given the circumstances, they're back in the playoff after getting beaten the national championship game last year. I think they want this one, and I think they'll beat Ohio State. Now, Ohio State is favored by a field goal. I think this one will be a close, hard-fought game. Could be similar to maybe the Florida State game or the Louisville game for Clemson. They jump out to a pretty big lead, and then the other team comes back, almost beats them, but Clemson pulls it out at the end. I can see it being a field goal, maybe a touchdown, I don't know. My pick, Clemson, 41-36. And then in the Peach Bowl, Alabama. Alabama. It's so simple. The Crimson Tide, they've put it on everyone this year, especially Florida in that SEC championship game. Washington does have a good offense. I wouldn't be surprised if they came out firing early in the game, but Alabama, they know how to control the game with their defense. Then on their offense, they have Jalen Hurts, who can hit you in the air or on the ground. I think the Crimson Tide win this game and advance to the national championship game for the second year in a row. So, based off of my predictions, Alabama and Clemson would rematch in the championship game. A betting man would take Alabama, but Clemson might want that one more. I'd have to go with the Tigers, getting their revenge on the Crimson Tide after a heartbreaking loss last year, 45-40. I can definitely see the Tigers winning this one. So, those were the teams that made it into the playoff. But what about the teams that got screwed over? Who should have been in? People may argue that maybe Michigan should have gotten in, despite their 2 losses and not winning their division. Or maybe Penn State, who, yes, had 2 losses, but not only did they win their division, they won their conference. So, Penn State definitely had reason to get in. I think they could have gotten in. Maybe, I don't think they should have gotten in, given their 2 losses, especially that blowout loss to Michigan. And then they also lost to Pitt. I'm not saying, really, neither one of those was a bad loss. Yes, it was a blowout loss, but it's Michigan. It was a pretty good team. Some people even argue that Oklahoma should have gotten in. No. 2-loss Big 12 team? No. So, I really don't think, like I said, people will argue that teams got screwed over in this playoff, but I think the committee actually got it right, despite all the controversy and everything that happened, the chaos, Penn State winning the Big Ten, who would have thought? But yeah, I think the committee actually got it right with the 4 that they put in. I think putting Washington, putting Ohio State in, I think those were good moves by the committee. I think we actually got the 4 best, most deserving teams. Well, last week was championship weekend, and after championship weekend, there's always just one game before the bowl season, and that's the Army-Navy game. This year it's being played in Baltimore. Navy's ranked number 25, coming off the American Athletic Championship game loss to Temple at home. They go not very far from their hometown of Annapolis to Baltimore to face their bitter arch-rival, Army. I can actually see Army pulling this game out. They have a winning record right now. They're 6-5, which is pretty spectacular given how poorly they've performed in the last, well, it's just been multiple seasons that they really have underperformed. I think the Black Knights will get it done, and it would be a huge win for them. They haven't beaten Navy in years. Shoot. That one's on CBS at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, so I would definitely recommend tuning into that one. I will. I know I will be. Following this Army-Navy game will actually be the Heisman Trophy ceremony. The finalists were announced on Monday. They are as follows: Oklahoma wide receiver D.D. Westbrook, Oklahoma quarterback Baker Mayfield, Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson, Michigan defensive, well, really Mr. Everything, Jabril Peppers, and of course Clemson quarterback Deshaun Watson. I do think these would be your best 5 players in college football. If you're talking skill positions, yes, Jabril Peppers technically doesn't play at a skill position, but he takes so many snaps at them. I mean, he does everything for those Wolverines. He's great. But personally, I think everyone really coming into the season thought Deshaun Watson would light it up, and he has, despite his 15 interceptions. Now, he has thrown for over 3,900 yards, which he did last year. But his rushing game hasn't been as efficient as it was last year. He rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, obviously. But that's because he hasn't really ran the ball nearly as much. I believe he's got somewhere between 400 and 500 yards. So he won't hit that 1,000 mark this year, but he's definitely still got high draft stock. Personally, for me, Deshaun Watson will win this Heisman Trophy. I don't see how he couldn't. Now, you could make the argument that Lamar Jackson is the better player. In my opinion, Lamar Jackson is going to be the next biggest NFL bust. Yes, he is a great college player, spinning into end zones, hurdling defenders, making Heisman poses. But, dang, I just can't fathom Lamar Jackson winning the Heisman Trophy. Yes, I mean, he is good for a college player. I'm sure he was good in high school. But he's just such a little guy. His arm really isn't that good. You look at the stats overall, Deshaun Watson's passing stats are better. Obviously not rushing, but, I mean, he's a quarterback, not a running back, so why should that matter? Oh, and did I also mention that Deshaun Watson is the only out of the 5 Heisman finalists to lead their team to the college football playoff? So, really, Deshaun has every reason to win this Heisman. I mean, Lamar Jackson, we thought Louisville could get into the playoff, even after losing to Clemson. Deshaun beat him head-to-head. God, I mean, I could just keep on going with the reasons why Deshaun Watson should win this Heisman over, Lamar Jackson, Jabril Peppers, Baker Mayfield, and D.D. Westbrook. I don't even know why D.D. Westbrook is a finalist. He's a wide receiver. He's got no chance of winning. Baker Mayfield, I mean, he lost 2 of his first 3 games. I just don't think he should be able to get away with that and win this Heisman. Well, he won't win this Heisman, so I'm not even worried. I think, though, that we've gotten the best 4 teams in the playoff. I think we will get the best player as the Heisman winner, Deshaun Watson. And I think that this really has been the perfect college football season so far. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. I'm Nick Butts. This has been Butts Talk. See you next week.